Things are not going well with the AI revolution. As we're seeing from the stock market, people are losing some of their interest and belief that AI is going to fix everything. A lot of artists are really upset. Anytime I mention AI on LinkedIn, I get quite a passionate response, and it actually didn't hit me until this morning. The reason why is the people on LinkedIn are a lot of people are job seekers or they're running businesses or they're employees. So they're always thinking about the negative impacts of AI in their direct life, which I completely understand. So there's a very strong anti-AI sentiment on LinkedIn for obvious reasons. And I think that AI is a great tool. Obviously, my co-host is AI, and that's been going pretty good. And I can do a lot. I can get a lot more attention. It's a much more interesting when I have someone to talk to because my monologue videos don't do very well. Even though I try to keep the energy up and stay on point and stay interesting, people prefer the dynamic between two people talking, which gets right back to our topic, which is the impact of authentic content and AI in content creation. The story that I bring up a lot is one of the greatest albums in rock and roll is Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. It's a breakup album and it's very intense. Several relationships breaking down during the writing and recording of that album. And of course, You Can Go Your Own Way, which was one of many hits that came off of that album. Singer and guitarist Lindsey Buckingham and singer Stevie Nicks. It was about their dissolution of their relationship, which was very dramatic, as was the other breakups. I believe drummer Mick Fleetwood was going through a divorce, and the bass player and piano player, primary songwriter and vocalist Christy McVie was going through a breakup of dissolution of marriage with her bass player. One of the greatest albums in rock and roll was rooted in this very authentic negative experience. Outside of the fact that it's a breakup album, it's just really great to listen to. When I was a kid, there was a movie called Crossroads that was very popular. It was Ralph Macchio, the one that played Karate Kid originally. And he's this young, kind of maybe lower middle class kid from New York, and he gets involved in the blues scene. And he's got a natural gift for guitar playing, and that is shown very early on. But his mentor, who drags him all through different places in the South, keeps telling him that he's got no mileage. In other words, he's got knowledge, but he has no wisdom. So there's an element lacking to his blues playing, and that's authentic pain and experience, because look where the blues came from. It came from the post-slavery South, where there was this outpouring of emotion and the tragedies and the breakups and the life of people struggling to survive. And some kid from New York who was going to Juilliard at the beginning of the film couldn't possibly bring anything authentic to that. So throughout that movie, he goes through heartbreak and danger, and he almost loses his life, and he goes through all of this. And at the lowest point of the film, he slinks away to his hotel room and sits on that grimy little bed in that little motel in the middle of nowhere and starts to play some real blues. And you can feel it. The music in the film is top notch. I believe it was done by Ry Cooder, if I'm not mistaken. But that shows the artist's journey. The reason why that's important is AI can't replace that. AI has knowledge, but it doesn't have wisdom. It has data, but it doesn't have experience. It doesn't know the pain of a breakup and what people go through. The trouble about that is if you're a creator or even a company owner, you're CEO or president, you're going to have to bring more humanity to the table. And in this era of social media, we only take photos when we're out on a nice dinner, dressed up. So you have to strip that away and be authentic. I'm not a big fan of the word authenticity because I think it's really overused, but you have to put yourself out there. Think about every great piece of art that has moved you, whether it be Michelangelo's Pieta, which is the Virgin Mary holding the body of Jesus. I mean, it's incredible. It's very, and I'm not particularly religious, but just how it looks visually evokes emotion. It's designed for that. And I remember, I can't think of the name of the museum I was in, but I got to see Salvador Dali's The Temptation of St. Anthony. And I had just turned the corner in the gallery and turned to face this, and it was a massive canvas. His work was really big, or this particular piece. I mean, it was wall size. And you got transported right into that. And the temptation of St. Anthony is nightmarish. It's a fever dream. It's unbelievable. It's his temptation in the desert. And it was amazing. I don't know if any other piece of art had struck me like that. And later I ran an art gallery. So I got to work with some great artists, and the artists that knew how to evoke those emotions through their work did very well. They sold work. But as a curator of a gallery, my job was to sell the art. And the thing that really, and I didn't understand this in the beginning. I wish I could say I knew this from day one, and I didn't. It took me several months of running that gallery and interacting with art buyers to understand. I got really good at memorizing the backstory of the artist. And, you know, that artistry sometimes comes from very dark places and bad accidents and relationships and really bad situations. And then that form of therapy where they put that feeling into the art. I shared as much as I could and what the artists were comfortable with the buyers. And I started to understand that some people just wanted something dramatic over their desk or something to match the couch, as we joke about in the art community. But knowing that story, the buyers would get really invested into that artist's story. Why? Humans are storytellers. And when they put that piece over their couch or in their dining room or in their master bedroom, they want to tell people that story. It's not just a dramatic piece of art. They want to say this artist is Rebecca Coffey, which is an artist that I worked with, and their story. We had an artist that had a traumatic brain injury that was an artist before, and they had to relearn how to create art because of that part of their brain had been damaged. And the art that they did post brain injury looked nothing like what they did before. And describing that and their journey to be able to reuse their hands and to think spatially. And art buyers really loved that because they fell in love with the artist. They fell in love with their story too. So it was more than just an image on the wall. And that is the weapon to defeat AI when it comes to artistic expression. Same thing with songwriters. As I already said, Fleetwood Mac Rumors, it is a breakup album. So people really get into the backstory. So if you're an artist and you're worried about AI taking over the industry and demonetizing everything, you're going to have to put more of yourself out there. You're going to have to write songs that are more personal. You're going to have to explain where that came from. You're going to have to expose yourself in interviews and explain to people where all of that comes from. People have to get very invested in you as the artist, and then they'll start to follow the things that you do. There are artists that I like them personally so much that even if they have a song that's not completely in my taste, I'm going to support it anyway because I just like them. And in one of the motivational books, I can't remember off the top of my head who said this, but all things being equal, we prefer to do business with our friends. And all things not being equal, we prefer to do business with our friends. You have to share yourself and your character. Where this is going to be difficult, and the people that I mourn for, as far as what's happening with AI, are artists that are camera shy, that are introverts, that they don't want the spotlight. They just want to create and they just want you to buy their music. They're going to have a hard time. Again, I'm not a religious guy, but I am aware that in the Old Testament, when Moses gets his brother Abraham to speak for him, because Abraham was charismatic, he was a charismatic leader. So Moses would get the commands from God, and Abraham would communicate it to the Jewish people during the Exodus. And I would say if you're that person, there's two paths you can go down. If you're an artist and you don't want the spotlight and don't want to go on podcasts and get interviewed all the time, and you want this secretive lifestyle, which is fine, but you also want to sell your art, you're going to have to get an Abraham. You're going to have to get either a mentor or a benefactor, a supporter. You can work within a system like I worked with artists that only did commissions. They only worked with institutions, like they do big paintings for schools and public libraries and things like that. So there's ways around it where you don't have to step into the spotlight. But there's a second option. You can develop a personality. The things that I wanted and the things that I wanted to do, I couldn't achieve them being the way I was before. So what we talk about, if you want something different, you have to do something different. So I started to look at my tics and behaviors and how I communicated, and some things had to change. Artists will need to start to share more of themselves and be more open. I think his name's Lacey Dooley. I really like his music. I had not heard of him a month or two ago, and I'm still trying to figure out the perfect way to support him. He opens up, he talks about himself, and he's a very personable guy. He's the kind of person you want to cheer for. So ask yourself, are you the kind of person that people want to cheer for? The old version of me, many, many, many years ago, I came off in a way that I think people were cheering for me to fail. I know there were some people that were just hoping I would fall on my face, and I did several times. Hopefully I'm not giving that vibe off as much anymore. I'm certainly trying not to be, but it was tough because I did a lot of things on my own before, and I had that air of I'm doing all this on my own. It was a very like a martyr type attitude, which is not very good. I realize now you can't do anything without the help of other people. So I have this more community approach towards things, and which has helped a lot. I can't tell you how much better my life is and how much happier I am because I understand the value of those connections and those relationships, which is actually what my second book is about. I wrote Scintilla, and which is about coming up with business ideas. Let's say you're working a 9 to 5 and you're not sure what you want to do, but you want to do something other than that and you want to work for yourself. The book answers that question. By the time you go through the end of it, you'll come through with a starting point of either a product or service or even a complete business concept. It gives you some really diagonal thinking, which is very unconventional ways of thinking to create these new solutions to current problems. Because you and I would both agree the world's got plenty of problems, plenty of problems. And if you find something that people are willing to pay for to solve, there you go. I mean, there's your fortune right there. So that book solves that problem. And that's my product, is that book. So people that want that solution, they can buy the book and they'll have the solution at the end of it. The follow-up book to that, which doesn't have a title, it's about 50% done, is I'm writing about LinkedIn. Very fascinated. Jumped on there, was never much into LinkedIn, kept hearing Gary Vaynerchuk talk about it. So I got on there and started trying different things and started researching what works and what doesn't. And wow, what an amazing platform. The thing that I really liked about LinkedIn is a lot of the other platforms have gotten so noisy, not just with ads, but there's a lot of nonsense on there. Some of it's AI, some of it's politics, and a lot of bad information that's not helpful. So when I look at something online, I'm asking myself, is this actionable information? I like to be entertained too, and I'll watch a silly video of somebody tripping or doing a prank, and I like that stuff too. But when it's information, when somebody's trying to inform me in some way, I'm thinking, is this actionable? I don't need somebody to tell me how bad things are. I know how bad things are. I want to know what's the solution. And that's one of my criticisms of shows like Joe Rogan, which he's obviously successful. I can't take anything away from him in that regard. But he very rarely asks, because they discuss problems all the time. They very rarely discuss solutions. He's been a little bit better about pressing the guests at that. But I don't think, maybe even the audience doesn't have a big appetite for the solution. But for me, I want to know, how do we fix this? We know there's problems, but what next? Because there's not much utility in constantly talking about problems. You have to start chipping away at that and approaching towards a solution. Same thing with what we're talking about, the impact of authentic content and AI in content creation. We'll see. We'll see how good that vidIQ's suggestion is. We'll see how well this does. This was their pick, the impact of authentic content and AI in content creation. That's a mouthful, first of all. But that is a subject that's, like I said, anytime you mention something on AI on LinkedIn, people immediately dogpile in there. It's hilarious. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, I would highly encourage you to do so. You can find me on Facebook too, but LinkedIn I'm really much more invested in that platform. And if you want to have a conversation with me, which I would enjoy, find me on there. You can, of course, comment here on YouTube. I do monitor those. If you look at past videos, anytime somebody asks a question or interacts, I'm good about responding. A lot of times they'll say in the video, leave your thoughts in the comments. I actually want to know what your thoughts are because a lot of times your perspective is much more interesting than mine, and I get to see the problem looked at from different angles and different perspectives. I've lived, for better or for worse, I've lived the life that I've wanted to live, and I don't think a lot of people get to do that, and that's unfortunate. So hopefully, and again, that was the purpose of the first book too. If people want to be set free, but they're not sure what to do, then pick up Scintilla. I'm actually coming out with a revised edition of that book. So shameless book plug. The current version, the original first edition of Scintilla, is heavily discounted right now because it's about to be updated. And I thought it would only be fair because I didn't want people to buy the first edition and then suddenly the second edition comes out with these updates and they felt like they were slighted. So I'm severely discounting. If you go to Amazon, I can put the link in the description. And then of course too, the updated version, which I'm very excited about, that's going to be updated completely. The Kindle, the soft cover, the hardcover, even the audio book is going to be re-narrated. But if you're into any of that, I would encourage you to pick it up. And as soon as I'm done with that, I'll start to do some promotion for the second book because that should be out by hopefully the end of March into April, end of first quarter 2026. Think about putting yourself out there. If you don't have a YouTube channel, you should. And the reason why, first of all, get a YouTube account. A lot of times I ask friends, hey, subscribe or comment, and then I find out they don't even have an account. So people that aren't even registered on YouTube can't help you. They can't support you. So first step is if you don't have a YouTube account, you get one. And then secondly, if you're an artist and you're concerned about this AI stuff and you're not currently shooting on YouTube, you should, because seeing yourself on camera helps you refine your presentation skills. I'm living proof of that. Go look at my interviews when I first started doing interviews on the podcast versus the ones that are later. You'll notice I'm much more relaxed. I always tried to be prepared, but I'm got much better at asking questions. I got much better at follow-up questions. I think my presentation skills got better. The video quality and audio quality got better. I have to laugh at myself because when I go back and look at that stuff from the beginning, I'm like, oh, that's terrible. That's how it is. To get to here, which again, I'm not where I want to be as far as my presentation style and the video quality and all that. I'm doing my best at the current moment, but I know that seeing how I was before to where I am now was a part of that evolution because I took the step to start doing the videos. So if you don't have a presence out there, if you're shy, you got to get over it. If you want to sell your idea, if you want to sell your product, sell your service, be independent, whatever your dreams are, it's going to require at least two things. You're going to have to start getting comfortable sharing yourself, number one. And number two, you need to make more connections. So I'm okay with number one. I'm completely through that phase. I can go live and I don't break a sweat and I'm not worried about that. My problem is I don't have enough connections, and that's my fault. For most of my life, I didn't understand the value of networking, which is one of the reasons why I'm writing a book on it. The book is about LinkedIn, but I'm really using it as a vehicle also to describe my experiences as being a very isolated person and how it caused a lot of issues. And then once I started to become more connected with people, things got better. So I would encourage you, connect with me. If you want to send me a message, you can. You'll be shocked. That doesn't matter. The great thing about LinkedIn, I've got people from Hollywood, big time people from Silicon Valley that have commented on my stuff and I've interacted with them. I'm a nobody, but what I'm saying is don't feel afraid to approach or send a message or ask a question. So I'll wrap that up. Let's get Eva in here. I'm shooting on Zoom right now, and I just wanted to get your take on this. The subject that we're tackling is the impact of authentic content and AI in content creation. Can you give me your 100-word solution to that?
Absolutely. In a nutshell, here's a 100-word take. Authentic content is really about connecting genuinely with your audience. And AI is a tool that can actually enhance that connection if used right. Rather than replacing authenticity, AI can help you streamline your process, personalize content, and free up more time to focus on your real voice. In other words, AI isn't about losing your authenticity, it's about amplifying it by letting you focus on what truly matters.
Eva, can you define authenticity? The word gets bandied about quite a bit, but what does it really mean?
Absolutely, let's break it down. Authenticity at its core is really about being genuine and true to yourself or your brand's voice. It means presenting your real thoughts, values, and personality rather than putting on a facade or trying to imitate someone else. When people talk about authenticity, they're really talking about honesty, transparency, and a sense of real connection. It's that feeling your audience gets when they know you're being real with them, and it builds trust and loyalty over time.
We're talking about their authenticity. Content creators exude a legitimate concern for their audience, their followers, the people that they work with. I think that does really well too. What do you think about that, Eva?
I think you're spot on, Robert. Authenticity definitely isn't just about the creator's own personality. It's also about showing genuine care and consideration for the audience. When creators actually listen to their followers, respond to their needs, and build a relationship that goes beyond just broadcasting content, that's a form of authenticity too. It shows that you actually value the people on the other side of the screen. And you're right, it really does resonate. It builds a stronger, more loyal community because people feel seen and heard. So that aspect of authenticity, caring about your audience, is definitely powerful and worth highlighting.
And a lot of people complain about not getting engagement on social media. Usually, if they confess that to me personally, I always ask them, well, what people are you supporting? What content creators are you supporting? How many people did you click like on their content? How many comments did you leave? How supportive are you? So I think a lot of people are content creators in this bubble and they're not getting a lot of eyes and ears, but they're also not contributing to other people's pages. So can you give me 100 words on that, how that reciprocity works, Eva?
For sure, that's a great point. Reciprocity on social media is a two-way street. If you want engagement, you got to give engagement. That means actively supporting other creators, leaving thoughtful comments, and genuinely engaging with other people's content. When you do that, you're building relationships and community, and that often comes back around. People are more likely to engage with your content if they feel you're part of their circle and not just broadcasting in isolation. So it's really about creating that supportive ecosystem, and that reciprocity can make a big difference.
Thank you, Eva. Give me a list of 5 ways that creatives, and by creatives, let's say artistic people, whether they're a visual artist, they're filmmakers, they do short movies, or maybe even music. What are 5 ways that people can monetize their work?
Sure thing. Here are 5 ways that creatives, whether they're visual artists, filmmakers, or musicians, can monetize their work. One, selling digital or physical products. They can sell prints, original artwork, merchandise, or digital downloads. For musicians, that might mean selling tracks or albums directly to fans. For filmmakers, it could be selling short films or exclusive behind the scenes content.
Like, subscribe, whatever you're supposed to do, wherever you're seeing this.
Two, crowdfunding and Patreon. Platforms like Patreon or Kickstarter allow fans to support artists through memberships or one-time contributions. Creators can offer exclusive content, early access, or special perks to those supporters. Three, teaching and workshops. Offering online courses, webinars, or in-person workshops can be a great way to monetize. Creatives can share their skills and knowledge, and people are often willing to pay for their expertise. Four, licensing and royalties. Creators can license their work for use in commercials, films, advertisements, or other media. They earn royalties whenever their creations are used by others. Five, sponsorships and brand collaborations. Partnering with brands for sponsored content or collaborations can be a lucrative avenue. Brands often look for creatives with engaged audiences to showcase their products in an authentic way.
That's very good, Eva. I appreciate that. Number 4 and number 5 helps if you're already established as an artist, if you have a name, so to speak. Thank you very much, Eva. I'll give you the final word for the wrap up.
You're very welcome. I'm glad that was helpful. Thanks for the chat.
Thank you. And reach out. That's a big thing. I love questions. If you want a particular piece of content covered, if you want to know more about the book that I wrote before, the book that I'm writing, anything, just connect with me. Ask any questions.